Husband pushed his wife off a moving train. You won't believe what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Mutually. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Like and share this videos to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The train whistled loudly as it moved along the tracks through the peaceful countryside. Inside one of the last coaches, Natasha sat quietly by the window, staring at the trees that rushed by. Her long brown hair flowed gently around her shoulders, and her fingers gripped the edge of her seat. She was traveling with her husband, Mark. He sat beside her, smiling and looking around like everything was fine. But deep inside, Natasha knew something was wrong. Very wrong. Mark hadn't been the same for months. He used to laugh with her, hold her hand, and kiss her forehead at night. But now, he barely spoke to her unless he was shouting. He often came home late, sometimes drunk, and he smelled like women's perfume that didn't belong to her. Still, Natasha had agreed to go on this trip with him. He said it was a romantic getaway, a chance to fix what was broken. He even booked train tickets to the same hills where they had first met 6 years ago. Natasha, though nervous, hoped maybe, just maybe, this trip could bring them back together. She packed lightly. A sweater, her journal, and her favorite scarf, the red one Mark had given her on their honeymoon. She wanted to believe that there was still love between them, even if everything felt like a lie. Mark stood up suddenly and stretched. Come, he said with a forced smile. Let's go to the back of the coach. You can get a better view from there. Natasha hesitated. We can see the trees from here. No, he insisted. Trust me, it's beautiful. Still trying to hold on to hope, Natasha followed him. They walked past a few empty seats until they reached the back of the coach. The train had an open platform there, with a metal rail and a door that was slightly open. Mark pushed the door wider. Look at that view, he said. Natasha stepped forward, slowly. She saw green hills in the distance and a deep river flowing below a long bridge. The wind blew softly across her face. It's lovely, she said. Then she turned to smile at him. But Mark wasn't smiling anymore. His face had changed. Cold. Empty. Mark, she whispered. He didn't answer. Before she could move, he stepped forward and shoved her, hard. Mark, she screamed. The world spun. Her body flew out of the train. Her hands reached for something, anything, but there was only air. The ground rushed up to meet her. And then, darkness. Silence. Only the sound of the train disappearing into the distance. Natasha's body ached. Every part of her felt bruised and broken, but her mind was sharper than ever. She tried to move, but her body didn't obey. She felt dizzy, her vision blurry. The cold wind still whipped at her face, and she could barely hear the sound of the train's whistle in the distance. Mark had pushed her off the moving train without a second thought. Tears welled up in Natasha's eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. She wasn't going to cry. Not anymore. She forced herself to sit up, but the pain was too much. Her whole body trembled. Her legs were sore, and her arm felt as if it was broken. She tried to stand, but everything spun, and she fell back down. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Help, she wanted to scream, but her voice was barely a whisper. Then, from the edge of the hill, she heard a voice. Hey, are you all right? Natasha tried to look up, but her head was heavy. Through the blurry fog in her vision, she saw a figure moving toward her. A tall man with dark brown hair, wearing a thick jacket and boots, was coming closer. His eyes were full of concern. The man crouched beside her. Hey, stay with me. Are you hurt badly? Natasha could barely speak. Her lips trembled as she whispered, He pushed me off the train. The man's face changed. He looked at her with disbelief. What? Who did that? My husband, she whispered. Mark, he tried to kill me. He didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he gently helped her sit up, placing her arm over his shoulder. We need to get you somewhere safe. Can you walk? Natasha shook her head weakly, and the man made a decision without hesitation. He scooped her up carefully, one arm around her waist, and the other under her knees. He carried her with surprising ease, despite her weight. As he walked, Natasha's thoughts began to clear. She looked around and realized she was in the middle of nowhere, far from any road or house. The train tracks stretched behind her, leading to the horizon. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I live nearby," the man said. "I have a cabin by the river. It's not far from here." Natasha nodded, not trusting her voice to speak more. She was grateful. He was the only person who had shown kindness to her today. The man carried her for what felt like forever, though it was only a few minutes before they reached a small wooden cabin by a slow-moving river. He pushed open the door with his shoulder and carefully laid Natasha down on a soft couch near a crackling fire. "Stay here," he told her. "I'll get some water and check your injuries." Natasha watched him go, her mind racing. She didn't know this man, but she knew she couldn't stay with Mark. She couldn't go back to him. The pain and betrayal were too much. The man returned with a bowl of water and some cloth. He sat beside her and gently cleaned her wounds. Natasha flinched a few times, but she didn't cry. She was strong now, stronger than she had ever been before. "I'm Daniel," the man said softly. "I found you, and I'm going to help you. You're safe here." "Thank you," Natasha whispered, her voice raw. Daniel nodded, his eyes kind but serious. "Do you need anything? I can call someone for you if you want." Natasha thought for a moment. She had no phone, no identification, nothing. Her mind was clouded with fear, but she knew she couldn't go to the police just yet. She wasn't sure what Mark might do next. She needed to think clearly. I don't know," Natasha said quietly. "But I can't go back to him. I can't." Daniel nodded again, understanding. He didn't ask for more details. Instead, he placed a fresh blanket over her, offering comfort. "You're safe for now," he said softly. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll figure out what to do next." Natasha closed her eyes. For the first time in hours, she felt a tiny bit of peace. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let Mark win. She wasn't broken. Not anymore. The next morning, Natasha woke to the soft sound of birds singing outside. The sunlight peeked through the small windows of the cabin, casting a warm glow on the room. She stretched and winced as pain shot through her shoulder. The bruises on her body still throbbed, but she wasn't going to let them stop her. She sat up slowly and looked around. Daniel's cabin was cozy, with wooden walls and a small kitchen tucked in the corner. It felt like a peaceful place, far away from everything that had happened. For the first time in a long while, Natasha allowed herself to breathe deeply without feeling like someone was watching her, waiting for her to fail. Daniel came into the room with a steaming cup of tea. "Morning," he said, offering it to her with a soft smile. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Natasha answered, taking the cup from him. "I'm not sure how I feel about everything, but I'm alive. That's something." Daniel sat down across from her. He looked at her with a mix of concern and understanding. "I'm glad you're here. You're safe now." Natasha took a sip of the tea, the warmth spreading through her body. She thought for a moment, then decided it was time to talk. "I can't go back to him," she said quietly. "I know you don't know me, but I need to tell you everything." Daniel nodded. "You don't have to explain if you don't want to. But if it helps, I'm here." Natasha swallowed hard. She wasn't sure where to begin, but she knew she had to tell someone. Someone who wasn't part of Mark's world. "He's not the man I married," she began. Mark changed. It started slowly at first. He was a little distant, a little colder. But then he started drinking more, coming home late, and I found out about the women. The other women. Daniel's face tightened, and Natasha saw the anger flash in his eyes. "I'm sorry. That's not the kind of person you deserve." Natasha nodded, grateful for his kindness. "He wasn't always like that. He was sweet when we first met. I thought he loved me. But then I realized he wasn't in it for love. He was in it for something else. Money." Daniel leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Natasha lowered her voice, as if saying it aloud might make it more real. My grandmother left me a small inheritance when she passed away. Mark didn't know about it at first. But then he found out, and everything changed. I thought he loved me for me, but I was wrong. He wanted the money. He thought that if he could get me to sign over everything to him, he could have it all. Daniel's eyes widened. That's awful. So he didn't just push you off the train because he was angry. He did it because he thought you were standing in his way. Natasha nodded, feeling sick to her stomach. He was trying to force me to sign some papers. But I refused. He wasn't going to stop until he had what he wanted. The weight of the truth hung in the air. Natasha's hands shook as she set her cup down on the table. She had kept this secret inside for too long, and now, with Daniel's support, she felt a little lighter. But there was still so much more to do. I don't know what to do now, Natasha said, her voice quiet. I have no ID, no phone, nothing. He probably told everyone I left him. He'll say I ran off, and they'll all believe him. Daniel thought for a moment, then stood up and went over to a small desk by the window. He pulled out a phone and handed it to Natasha. You can use this. Call anyone you need to. The first thing we need to do is get you back to New York. We'll figure out what to do from there. Natasha looked at the phone, hesitating. She hadn't spoken to anyone since the night Mark pushed her. Her best friend, Grace, would be the first person to call. But Natasha wasn't sure if it was safe yet. What if Mark had already told the police? What if no one believed her? Grace, she said finally, her voice trembling. She's my best friend.
She'll believe me.
She'll help. Daniel nodded. Then call her. You need to be surrounded by people who care about you. Taking a deep breath, Natasha dialed Grace's number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Finally, a familiar voice picked up. Natasha? Oh my God, Natasha. Is it really you? Tears sprang to Natasha's eyes. Grace, it's me. I need your help. Grace's voice broke with emotion. Where are you? We thought you were dead. Mark said you disappeared. I was on a train, Natasha whispered, choking on her words. He pushed me off the train, Grace. He tried to kill me. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. What? He did what? Are you okay? Where are you? I'm coming to get you. I swear I'm coming to get you. Natasha closed her eyes, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time since Mark's betrayal, she wasn't alone. She had someone who would fight for her. Someone who would help her get justice. I'm safe for now, Natasha said, but I need to stay hidden. I'm in a small town, and I don't know what Mark will do next. But I'll need your help. And the police. I don't think he'll stop until he gets what he wants. Grace's voice grew firm. Don't worry. We'll figure it out. I'm coming to you, Natasha. Just stay safe. When Natasha hung up the phone, Daniel was waiting, his expression serious. We're not going to let him get away with it.
You have people who care about you.
We'll make sure he pays for what he did. Natasha nodded, feeling a strength inside her that she hadn't felt in months. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was going to fight back. She was going to make sure Mark paid for what he had done. The battle had just begun. It had been a week since Natasha had spoken to Grace. Her best friend had flown to the small town where Natasha was hiding, and they spent the first few days catching up, sharing stories, and planning their next steps. Natasha had explained everything, how Mark had changed, how he had pushed her off the train, and how she had nearly died. Grace was shocked and heartbroken, but she promised Natasha they would make sure Mark faced the consequences for what he did. But even though Natasha had Grace by her side, the fear never fully left her. Mark was still out there, and she didn't know how far he'd go to get what he wanted. The thought of him, of what he was capable of, made her skin crawl. One morning, while Natasha was sitting with Grace in the small kitchen of the cabin, she heard a knock on the door. Grace stood up quickly, her eyes narrowing. Who could that be? She asked, her voice filled with caution. I don't know, Natasha whispered. She had the sudden urge to hide, but Grace was already walking toward the door. When Grace opened it, Natasha's heart skipped a beat. Standing in front of them was a tall man in a dark suit. His eyes were cold, his face serious. I'm Detective Harris, the man said, flashing a badge. I'm investigating the disappearance of your husband, Natasha. Natasha froze. Her pulse raced as she tried to stay calm. He's not missing, Natasha said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm here. I'm alive. Detective Harris looked at her, his expression unreadable. I know you're alive. The problem is that your husband, Mark, is claiming you ran away. He says you left him and took your inheritance with you. Natasha's heart sank. She knew Mark would do this. He would twist the truth to make himself look like the victim. I didn't run away, Natasha said, her voice stronger now. He pushed me off the train. He tried to kill me. Grace stepped forward, standing beside Natasha. We have evidence, Grace said, her tone sharp. Natasha was pushed off the moving train. We know he did it. Detective Harris raised an eyebrow. Evidence? Grace pulled out her phone and showed him the text messages Natasha had sent her in the days before the trip. There were messages about Mark's increasing behavior problems, his demands for Natasha to sign papers giving him control of her inheritance, and Natasha's growing fear. Look at these, Grace continued. She had no reason to leave. She was scared. Detective Harris looked at the phone, then back at Natasha. He seemed to hesitate, as if weighing something in his mind. This is serious. If what you're saying is true, then we have a crime. But we need more than just these messages. We need a formal statement, evidence from the train, and witnesses. Natasha took a deep breath. She knew what he was asking. She needed to be strong. She couldn't back down now. I'll do it, Natasha said firmly. I'll make a statement. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure he doesn't hurt anyone else. The detective nodded slowly.
Good.
I'll get in touch with the police in the city and start working on this. It's not going to be easy, but if Mark really pushed you, we'll get him. With that, Detective Harris left, promising to keep Natasha and Grace updated. As the door closed behind him, Natasha felt a small sense of relief. Finally, someone was listening. Finally, she wasn't alone. But that relief quickly turned to dread. What if Mark fought back? What if he tried to hide his tracks or make her out to be crazy? The thought of him twisting the story again made Natasha feel sick. Are you okay? Grace asked, noticing Natasha's face fall. I don't know, Natasha whispered. I want to believe this will work, but I'm scared. What if they don't believe me? What if he gets away with it? Grace took Natasha's hands in hers, squeezing them tightly. He won't. We have the truth on our side. And you're stronger than you think. Natasha managed a small smile, grateful for Grace's support. But inside, doubt still gnawed at her. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but she couldn't stop now. She had to keep moving forward. She had to be brave for herself and for the future she wanted to build. Over the next few days, Natasha worked with Detective Harris, giving her statement and gathering any evidence she could. They also reached out to the people who had been on the train with her, hoping one of them had seen Mark push her. Natasha felt a growing sense of dread as the investigation unfolded. Every time the phone rang, her heart skipped a beat. What if it was bad news? Then, one afternoon, while Natasha was walking through the nearby woods to clear her head, her phone rang. It was Detective Harris. We have something, he said. A witness. Someone saw your husband push you off the train. Natasha's legs felt weak. She could barely breathe. Are you sure? She asked, her voice shaking. We're sure, Detective Harris replied. We have a statement from the conductor. He said he saw Mark push you right before you fell. We're moving forward with the case. Tears filled Natasha's eyes. She couldn't believe it. After everything Mark had put her through, after the pain and fear, there was finally proof. The news from Detective Harris felt like a dream, but it was real. Mark had been caught. There was a witness. The conductor had confirmed everything Natasha had said. Her heart raced with a mixture of emotions, relief, anger, and disbelief. She wasn't sure when she'd stopped believing in justice. After everything Mark had done, after he'd twisted the truth and made her feel so small, Natasha wasn't sure she could ever trust anyone again. But now, with the witness's statement and the investigation moving forward, it seemed like justice might finally be on her side. For the first time in weeks, Natasha felt a weight lifting from her chest. She had been living in fear for so long, and now she was taking her life back. But as much as she felt relief, she still wasn't sure how her life would look after this. Would she ever be the same? Could she ever go back to the person she was before Mark? The person she had lost along the way? That night, Natasha sat with Grace by the fire, reflecting on everything that had happened. Grace had been a constant support, and Natasha knew she couldn't have made it this far without her. "I can't believe it's finally happening," Natasha said softly, staring into the flames. "I didn't think it would ever end. I didn't think I'd be able to move on." Grace gave her a warm smile. "You've always been strong, Natasha. Even when you didn't realize it. You've made it through the worst of it. Now it's time for a new chapter." Natasha nodded but felt a quiet uncertainty in her heart. Her life was about to change, but how? Would she be able to trust again? Would she ever be able to heal? The next day, Natasha received another phone call from Detective Harris. "Mark is in custody," he said. "He's been charged with attempted murder, and we're gathering the final evidence to take him to trial. This is it, Natasha. You don't have to look over your shoulder anymore." Tears filled Natasha's eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief. Finally, she was free. Mark wouldn't hurt anyone else. She wouldn't have to live in fear anymore. She hung up the phone and sat quietly for a moment. Her mind raced with all the things she needed to do next. There were legal battles ahead, of course. She still needed to reclaim what was rightfully hers, her inheritance, her life. But for the first time in so long, she felt hope. She felt like she could breathe again. It wasn't long before Daniel arrived at the cabin. His presence was like a quiet reassurance that everything would be okay. He had been by her side from the very beginning, offering his help without hesitation. Though Natasha had been reluctant to accept help at first, now, she realized how much it had meant to her. Daniel had been her lifeline, a steady hand in a world that had felt so unstable. Daniel knocked gently on the door before stepping inside. His eyes softened when he saw Natasha, and he gave her a small smile. "How are you holding up?" he asked. Natasha met his gaze, and for the first time, she felt a warmth spread through her chest. He wasn't just a stranger who had helped her out of the kindness of his heart. He had become her friend, her ally. "I'm doing okay," Natasha said, her voice a little shaky. "It's all happening so fast. I feel like everything is changing, but I'm not sure what's next." Daniel nodded and sat down next to her. "I get it. You're not alone in this, Natasha. You've got people who care about you now." Natasha felt a lump form in her throat. She had no idea how long she'd been craving that, someone who actually cared about her. Someone who wasn't after something. Someone who wanted her to be happy, no matter what. "Thank you," Natasha whispered. "I don't know where I would be right now without you." Daniel smiled softly. "You would have made it on your own. You're stronger than you think. But I'm glad I was able to help." Natasha looked at him, really looked at him, and she realized something. Over the days she had spent recovering, talking, and healing, something had changed between them. It wasn't just gratitude or friendship. It was something deeper, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel for a long time. "I'm scared, Daniel," Natasha admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared of what's next. Scared of what it all means. I don't know how to start over." "You don't have to have it all figured out right now," Daniel said gently. "Just take it one step at a time. And remember, you don't have to do it alone." Tears welled up in Natasha's eyes again, but this time, they weren't just from pain. They were from something new, something that had been buried for a long time, hope. "I don't want to be alone anymore," Natasha said, her voice barely audible. Daniel's eyes softened, and he placed his hand gently on hers. "You don't have to be alone." In that moment, Natasha felt a shift inside her. She had been so focused on surviving, on fighting to get away from Mark, that she hadn't allowed herself to imagine a life after. She hadn't allowed herself to think about the possibility of happiness. But here, with Daniel, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she could find a new path. "I don't know what the future holds," Natasha said, her voice filled with quiet strength. But I'm ready to face it. I'm ready to rebuild. And I'm ready to do it with people who care about me. Daniel gave her a smile that warmed her heart. I'm with you, Natasha. No matter what happens. As the days passed, Natasha began to rebuild her life. She contacted her lawyer, worked through the legal battles with Mark's assets, and started the process of reclaiming what was rightfully hers. But more than that, she started to believe in herself again. She started to believe that there was a future for her, beyond the pain and betrayal. With Daniel's support and Grace's friendship, Natasha slowly began to heal. She wasn't the same woman who had boarded that train all those months ago, terrified of the man she had married. She was stronger now, more confident. She was a woman who had faced the darkest moments of her life and had come out the other side, ready to start fresh. And for the first time in a long time, Natasha believed she deserved happiness. As the sun set on another peaceful evening, Natasha looked out over the river, feeling the cool breeze on her face. She had survived. She had fought. And now, she was ready to live again. The future was hers. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Thanks for watching.